I don't know why they started going to a Baptist church, but they did.
Wow. So that's actually like rebellious for them. They were the rebels becoming Baptists.
A little bit, I guess, the more I look at it, because yeah, like the Baptist church we went to, they were a lot more like sing-songy and woo-woo praise than probably my grandma would have been used to in her Mennonite,
Yeah.
Mennonite
Wow.
solemnness.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for joining me for Growing Up Fundie. I'm really excited to talk to you. You have been just amazingly flexible. For anybody listening, we were supposed to talk a week ago, and then I got a tornado, which is great. And where my desk is now, I moved it recently. There's a window in front of me, and there's a window down the side of me. So I was like, the chances of a tree falling into one of these two windows seems pretty high. So now we're meeting now instead. No tornado ever touched down in my yard, which is great. Enough for me. Tell us a bit about yourself, Rich. Who are you? What do you do? What are you all about?
That is amazing. I'm so happy to hear that you survived the tornado, because they
Yes.
are known to throw 2x4s and bricks through windows also.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Number one, thank you for doing the podcast that you do and the work that you do. This is super important. When I first decided that I was deconverting, there was not really a space for it. There was,
Right.
I mean, the internet was still barely just a thing back
Right.
in like the mid 90s when I first started. So thank you for making this for people. Like if I could have heard some other people's stories back then, it would have made a big difference for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Probably would have put a lot more stuff in motion a lot sooner. So this is super important work that you do. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for being a part of it. I really appreciate it. Wouldn't be here without guests like you.
Of course. So you were asking about me. My name's Rich. I live in California. I'm born and raised in California. I was born in Northern California. I grew up in Southern California, Central California, and I live in Northern California now. I'm 46 years old. I was raised, my mom and dad were both Baptist.
I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know where they got I don't know. Honestly, I don't know where the Baptist came from, because my dad's mom was like Mennonite, like like Mennonite, like Dwight Schrute, like with the clothes and like like hard work, like board, like she was a Pennsylvania Dutch Mennonite, like this. So she came from, my grandma came from that, and I don't know what my grandpa was, but when they came to California, somehow they became, I don't know why they started going to a Baptist church, but they did.
Wow. So that's actually like rebellious for them. They were the rebels becoming Baptists.
A little bit, I guess, the more I look at it, because yeah, like the Baptist church we went to, they were a lot more like sing-songy and woo-woo praise than probably my grandma would have been used to in her Mennonite solemnness. So my dad was a super big family. He was the youngest, and my mom was also raised with two parents that were really religious. They were Lutheran, and they were, I mean, these were super, I mean, every Sunday volunteer in the church, both sides, my mom and dad. So like real super churchy, blah, blah, blah. And that when they got married, they had us three kids. I'm the oldest, I have two sisters, and we were a product of church filtering downing. I don't know.
Trickle down. Church economics.
Trickle down terribleness. Well, they were super about the religion, like super about it our whole lives.
Interesting.
It was ingrained in us. Some of my, like, I don't know if I'm alone in having maybe 5 or 6 memories from when I was a little child, but I do have a few, and they're all like church related from how much time we spent in church. we went to church, usually 3 or 4 times a week when I was little. Yeah.
And like 3 times on Sunday, right? Weren't you telling me it was like 3
Yeah.
services on Sunday? Wow, that's a
We
lot.
would go to the early morning service, then we would go to the like hip service, the one that was at like 10 o'clock, where like the people would wear jeans and stuff, like that was
The
like
brunch service, yeah.
yeah, where the pastor would like play a guitar instead of, or they'd have a band instead of like regular hymn. It was like the hip one, but then we'd also go home, and then we'd come back to a night service on Sunday, and then
too much.
We begged to stop. We begged. No. I remember like not wanting to go, starting when I was like, maybe in my like junior high, like 8, 9 years old. Like,
yeah, same.
Just once a week. I'd be same too. You?
Yeah. Even at my most devout, I was like, Sunday night. That is preposterous. No, why are we doing this?
Like I just saw these people. They're just wearing different clothes, and we're talking about kind of different stuff, but not really.
And got to take just enough of a nap to be grumpy. Everyone's just going to be grumpy. That's how that goes.
Yeah.
And so
no,
about
not a thing anymore.
How old were you then? Because it sounds like you were pretty steeped in the faith, even though they changed religions. How old were you when you first started to think, this may not be my thing, or I don't necessarily agree with this, beyond just not wanting to go so many times a week?
Like probably the real like fundamental break started coming in when I was like maybe in junior high or high school. And that was when I was like old enough and big enough at that point to just say like, no, I'm not going.
Oh, so you just came out and were like, nah, no thanks.
Yeah. No, I was like always kind of, because I was the firstborn, so I was always like kind of like the golden child, So I tried really hard for a really long time to like be cool with my parents, but even they got to a point finally where I think they were about done with church too for a while.
They were just like burned out a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they got burned at one of our churches socially and stuff like that, and they had some other stuff happen because they church hopped all whenever we moved and stuff. So they've had a couple of bad experiences here and there, and I think they were done. Like I said, I was too big when I was in high school. They couldn't like physically make me do stuff anymore, and I was kind of like, I'm not getting anything out of going to church with you guys or for you. Like it doesn't get me nothing. So I just stopped.
Was it that you weren't getting anything out of the actual act of going to service, or was it religion in general just wasn't hitting for you the way that it had been in the past?
Both. Yeah, both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I right about when I went from like junior high to high school, I had a incident at one of the churches that we went to, and I didn't realize it until not even in the moment did I realize it, but like maybe 10 years later into the future, when I look back at what happened, and I had people come to me like, hey, you remember when that happened? That was messed up, right? Like, I didn't even start breaking from like, yeah, this is bad, until I was maybe like junior high or high school. And it was because of one really gross thing that happened in our church that kind of, well, there was like a string of events, but one that was finally like, all right, that's terrible.
Yeah.
You people are the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
It made me see, and it's imbibed me with a severe aversion to like abusive authority figures.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Because I know you told me about the situation. I figured you probably didn't want to talk about it like on the record. If you want to, you can, but I wasn't sure if that was like too identifying or anything.
Oh, no, there's no names that I remember of anything because it happened so long ago. Yeah.
And sadly, it happens so often. I feel like that even if you did tell it in detail, people would Google it and be like, which one? There's so many that this happens at.
There's like 6. Probably.
At least. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I didn't know anything about it. And I feel like the story of my life a little bit sometimes is I'm kind of like the guy over here who's trying to do the right thing. And then like, what, you terrible people are back here doing what? Oof, yeah, it really. And so, yeah, like I was saying, I have a deep mistrust for abusive the power figures. It actually it actually started further back than that. But it, it started when I was a little baby. I learned my very 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 first memory that I have from a. Do you have memories from when you were like 4, 5, 6?
Yes,
No,
and
but
they're all from, like, the same apartment that we lived in, but I have, like, 5 or 6, yeah, very specific memories.
because I have like maybe a few that are still hanging on, but the one that I'll never forget is when I was 4. My parents asked me if I wanted to be baptized, and or if I the 4 because I remember they wrote it in the family Bible. Ricky got saved, accepted Jesus, and went to go be baptized. I was 4 years old. And it sticks out in my head because I remember when I went to go get baptized, that I had to walk in the little tank, and the preacher who I didn't know this guy. It was kind of a bigger church we went to when I was little. It wasn't like a mega church or anything, but it was not like there's just 20 people. There's quite a few, probably at least a couple hundred if I remember right. But anyways, I'm little 4-year-old me. I walk up to the preacher in the tank, and the water's feels like warm and stuff. And the guy, I watch him do it to 3 or 4 other, people in front of me, dunk their heads, raise them up, dunk their head, raise them up, and he goes to dunk me, and I wouldn't let him dunk me. I grabbed the side of the tank and like splashed water over the thing. And I remember I kind of got in trouble, not in trouble, but like I remember my cousins and other kids like giving me a hard time for it because I didn't want to be dunked by this strange dude.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
you're like, "I know what they do around here. I don't wanna be dunked underwater by this guy. No freaking way, man."
well, like that's in having to unwind some of this stuff that I've found that I've had to deal with as I've gotten older. Like, yeah, I kind of don't trust people,
Yeah,
male
absolutely.
authority figures, and I also have a weird aversion to like um water and like confined spaces.
Yeah, yeah, like, none of that sounds fun. I don't know any 5-year-old who would wanna be, like, forcibly dunked underwater, and it's interesting too because I know there's some religions who they do it when you're an infant. They do it before you're even old enough to consent to it or even know what's going on. You don't know, you get baptized. I think Catholicism was one of the larger ones that they sprinkle water on you or they
Yeah,
dunk you when you're a baby. And then in the
it's
Baptist
easy.
faith, they wait until you're old enough, supposedly, to consent and decide that you wanna take Jesus into your heart and you wanna be baptized and things like that. Um, and I still wonder all the time because I remember the day that I was like, "I'm ready to be baptized. I'm ready to accept Jesus into my heart." I still wonder so often how much of that was me just knowing what I was supposed to say and knowing what would make the grown-ups go, "Oh, are you? Wow. This is awesome. Good for you." And I knew what it meant because I was older. I was probably 9 or 10 when I officially got baptized, and I knew what it meant. I knew that it meant I wanted to follow Jesus and I was, bringing him into my life and my heart, but at the same time, I'm like, is it possible for a child to truly understand what that means? Or does a child understand, I don't wanna burn in hell? Like, maybe it was more that. Maybe it was, I know that if I don't do this, I will eventually go to hell and burn. So maybe that it's very interesting. It's hard to look back unbiasedly and try to unpack how much I felt like I believed that. And so after your debacle getting
Mhm.
baptized slash not getting baptized, did you
Mhm.
feel any different? Did you feel any more Christian? Were you less Christian because you were embarrassed? What was that? What do you remember about life after that, if anything?
Well, I was 4, so so
You're like, well, I was
not
4, so
not a ton. I remember thinking I was like super cool because I thought I was really cool because I accepted Jesus into my heart, younger than like my cousin did or what. Like I remember it was like a thing for my family. Like, hey, check it out, man. He was 4. Well, he was 4. So it was like you were saying. I don't know if I was doing it because I knew this is what you got to do to make the adults like do the yay yays or like also, maybe I was scared of like, being separated from my parents in hell forever, like you're saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
of course I was happy to like, yeah, the Jesus, right on, man. Like, yeah, let's do that. Of course.
Yeah, because we all of us think that the rapture is going to happen in our lifetime. So even 9-year-old me was like, I got to get this shit done before I'm, 12 and this rapture happens that everyone's telling me about or something.
Do you still have like random moments where you'll like see something and you're like, oh shit.
Yes. After the eclipse, was that yesterday, the day before? I was like, hey, none of us got raptured. And I was like, oh shit, that doesn't mean nobody got raptured. That just means we didn't get raptured. Wait a second, none of us would get raptured. Oh no, what if they all got raptured? Yeah, there are still moments. I tell people this all the time, you're talking about going through a deconstruction process and how you're still in the middle of it. I consider myself far beyond, like, I am an atheist. It's my whole brand. It is literally my whole brand. And I still have moments where I'm like, but what if? But what if? Like, just, and so that part I don't think ever goes away. That little part of your brain when you were developing that was told this is coming, it's easy to say, oh, that's a bunch of BS. But then
Yeah.
also to go,
But then to actually face it.
yeah, to be like, I don't know, man, that eclipse does look a little spooky. It is looking a little spooky. And so after that, do you remember, I know that you had that situation at your church that basically, for anybody listening, involved the person who was groomed and abused being blamed for themselves getting groomed and abused, and like being forced to basically apologize for it in front of everybody when the person who did it did not get any punishment or reprimand at all, which is really messed up. After that, like, did you feel like maybe being a Baptist wasn't for you, being a Christian wasn't for you, or were you just done with religion entirely? How did it go from that to I'm an atheist now?
It was a long process because that was the worst, like most awkward, grossest thing that I've ever had to sit through in my life. And I was only like in like maybe 11 or 12. I 100% did not know what was going on, like what these people were talking about. I was like, what?
And you shouldn't.
This girl?
At that age, you shouldn't know what that is. Like, grown-ups shouldn't be telling you what that is. And like, oh, this knocked up slut, like that shouldn't be a thing.
I don't know why they made that poor girl get up in front of the whole group. It was a poor girl in the high school group. And I felt so terrible for her. But like I said, I was also, 11 or 12, and I didn't even know 100% what had happened. I found out much later, many years after the fact. Somebody told me, hey, do you remember that pastor that was standing next to her that was just like nodding his head and saying like, and like shaking? And yeah, that was the dude that did it. It wasn't some other like high school dude. It was this 40-something-year-old man.
Wow.
And nobody, I don't know if like people just thought like I know the adults knew, the adults in the church knew, and the people, the pastor, I'm sure he left the church. We left the church. My family left that church pretty directly after that happened. But my parents kind of always played that off as like, oh, that was just a bad actor. That was,
well,
yeah,
and
they were able.
A lot of times also in those scenarios, sadly, they say, well, he was a man of God and she led him astray. Like, yeah, he was involved in it, but he was a man of God and temptation led him astray. That's easier to forgive than being the one leading people astray. That's just a whole other type of sin that we just can't forgive. And you're like, do you hear you right now? Sadly, they do. And they don't hear anything wrong with that.
Yeah, fortunately, unfortunately, however you look at it, I was not involved in any of like the adult conversations that happened with this. You know what I mean? So this was just this weird thing that happened one Sunday morning. And like I said, 10 years after the fact, somebody like finally told me like, dude, that was that pastor.
Yeah.
Because like the whole time I just thought that this poor girl was just somebody who would like, they were trying to shame her for having premarital sex and getting knocked up.
Yeah.
I thought that's all it was as a kid. And I was like, oh, gee whiz, that's too bad. That's too bad that happened to that girl. But she probably learned something. Like
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
sure she learned from it.
Yeah, you're not supposed, and that's the thing is, like, you're not supposed to be able to wrap your mind around that.
Hmm.
You're like 13, 14, you're supposed to care about video games and Doritos and maybe a girl at school, and I
That was
like
it.
it's refreshing that you didn't know those things, but also it's disturbing that somebody who's so young they don't know what's going on was still part of that conversation. That was
No, I
still
know.
yeah.
And that girl, she was. I know she was not out of the high school group because like the way they had that church group split up, it was junior high, high school. It was they didn't have college. It was not a thing for that church at that where that was. But
Yeah.
so she was. I know no. She was under 18. She was. I want to say she was a freshman or a sophomore. Now I can't remember. But I mean,
Yeah. That's wild. And
mhm,
so your parents seem to have clocked how messed up that was and gotten you out of there. Did they
yeah.
just kind
Mhm.
of did they just kind of say, "Oh, we're going to a new church now"? Did they ever really bring it up? Did you have to bring it up for them to talk about it? They just kind of moved on.
Yeah, my family's really good about just like sweeping stuff under the rug, and we very quickly moved after that. It was we at that time we were living in the Bay Area in California, and it was super expensive. Anyways, my family we couldn't afford to live there anyways, and that was just like, all right, that's donezo.
Yeah. Oh, well, the last sign we needed to get out of here. Thank you. Bye.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that's the wild
So
part is I keep forgetting this happened in California because it sounds like such a no offense to anybody listening, but it's true. Louisiana, Mississippi, deep South thing. And then you find out it's happening in California. That's
in
wild.
the Bay Area, not even I mean, terrible stuff happens in like everywhere you go, but it's
Yeah.
not like it was some backwards like town in California. It was Bay Area, California, the hip
Right.
liberal part of the country. Like
Right.
oh yeah, no.
Right. Wild. And so after that, so you guys moved kind of to a new church after that, and then you just kind of put your foot down and were like, I don't really want to go anymore, or what did that look like after that for you?
Yeah, we tried to find a church that like would fit with us. My family did, and like at that point, I was already like kind of done with church. I was really only going to like for socially, like to try to meet girls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
was all I was there for at that point.
Yep.
And that's when I was in high school, and I very quickly got my own car, and that's when I just kind of stopped going,
Yeah. And so
doing my own
did
thing.
you think about it much, or was it when you were older that you started to really think about deconstructing and things like that?
I pretty much stopped going to church for a long time, and it was always in the back of my head. Like I was, all right, I know oh God, please let this happen. Like if something was, I needed something in my life, but I wasn't like practicing or going to church or anything.
Yeah.
I just, and then the more I ended up joining the Air Force,
Wow.
and slowly over the course of however many years that I was in, I took college classes, and I started like joining the Air Force was one of the better things that could have happened for me, being from a
Awesome.
super insular family, because I was like forced into a situation where I had to work with Muslim guys, people from the South, people from New York, atheist guys, people from the Pacific Northwest, people from just all over
Right.
and religion. Like there were
Right.
so many
Yeah.
people with different religions. You know what I mean? So I just had to like, oh man,
Like
check
open
these.
your mind. Yeah. It like forced you to
Mhm.
engage with people that you otherwise wouldn't engage with.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
exactly. And the more I started to realize, like, there's some universal things that are just there's universal things that are important. It's
Yeah.
like
Do you
not only
remember
one person said them all. What? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask, like, do you remember what any of those things were? Like, any of those moments where you were like, "Oh, maybe I have been kind of closed-minded, or maybe that doesn't have to be the truth." Did anybody ever say anything to you or point anything out to you?
Yeah, I've had some pretty interesting moments over my life just from how closed-minded I've been. Uh, like when I was still in don't ask, don't tell was a thing. And
Yeah.
I had a really good friend of mine who was gay, and I didn't know he was gay while
Right.
we were in together. But like I remember when he got out, I still had like 2 or 3 years on my enlistment. He got out about the same time I did, and I still had another year left. And he stayed in the local area. And I remember people telling me like, "Oh, do you know so and so, man? I saw him on an app, on a dating app. He's gay or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's wow, okay, cool." And like I ended up feeling so terrible that that man couldn't tell me that. Like I was
Yeah.
such good friends with him, and I was like, wow, what kind of person? What does that say about me? And so like I had to do like a lot of yeah, I had to do a lot of introspection
Yeah.
about who I was and the way I looked at people and the way I treated people and the way I thought about it. So that was a big moment for me. That was back in like mid '90s.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of, I think, one of the harder parts of deconstruction is not seeing the difference around you, but seeing the difference in you as a person, and being made aware of things you used to say and thoughts you used to have. And nothing will haunt you more than things like time hop that show you what you wrote on this day on social media every year. Like I have time hop, and it shows me like, oh, on April 10th for the last 11 years, this is what you wrote. And you can see the literal timeline of the changes in your thoughts and opinions. I use that app just to delete stuff because I'm like, oh, this is trash, trash take, trash take. And part of you is like, maybe I can blame this on being young and dumb, but the other part of you knows you've got to take accountability for that. And that's one of the harder things, is just basically being embarrassed on a regular basis for years at a time. Just, oh, I can't believe I used to, oh my gosh. Now, if I remember these things, what does everyone else who knew me at that time remember that I've blacked out because shame, and
Mhm.
luckily, I just happened to have a lot of people who were very patient with me, who would say things like, "Why do you think that?" Or "Why would you say that?" Or "Where did you find that source?"
Mhm.
And basically make me admit to myself that I didn't have any sources to back that up. I was just parroting what I was told. I don't actually know. And so that's, I think, one of the harder parts, is people think the hardest part is going to be when your family finds out or when your friends find out, but really it's when you find out what you've been like all this time, or what you used to say, or who you used to be. And you kind of have to come to terms with that, because you're never truly going to deconstruct, in my opinion, if you don't admit that stuff to yourself. If you don't say, these are the things I used to say and do, and I'm not going to do them from here on out, or I'm not going to say them from here on out. If you're not willing to do that, you're not ready to deconstruct, in my opinion, in my personal opinion.
Facts, that's growth.
Yeah, truly, truly. Yeah. And so were you already married at that point? Were you already deconstructing when you got married? Was that something that you had to kind of do for yourself first, or
Um, when I got married, I was still in like a weird place with religion. Like
yeah.
like I just know that I don't know. Like I was just in a place where I knew I don't know everything. Like
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know
You're
what's
like,
out there.
I just work here.
No, yeah, no, I know enough about science to know that I don't know hardly anything, and
Yes.
there's people that are so much smarter than me that if they find out something, they'll let us know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yes, yes. But that's awesome. Doesn't it feel amazing to not have to know everything?
Mhm.
It feels great to be able to take your hands off and be like, "You know what? I don't know anything. There's people whose job it is to know those things, and whenever they're ready to tell me what those are, I will believe them and trust them."
Oh yeah, the scientific method is a thing.
Yeah.
I firmly believe I'm super into science. We believe in the scientific method big time in our house. But that leads me to my spouse and not knowing everything. Neither one of us were religious when I met. Like when we first met, I probably would have called myself like maybe a deist or something like that. Like
Yeah,
I don't, and that was years ago. That was in
right.
2004 or 2005 when I met my wife. So like I wasn't fully deconstructed. I just like
Yeah. You're kind of there.
No, yeah, like I kind of still subscribe to the same philosophy now as I did back then. Like, I know there's a lot of good things about a lot of different religions, and like, I'll take whatever the good is from each one that I can find when I study it. Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. That's good. Okay, I believe that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just try to live like I try to live like that, like the
Yeah.
best things I can find from the different religions that I study
Yeah.
throughout the years. And neither one of us, my wife or myself, 100%, like I was telling you, know what's out there.
Yeah.
But like, neither one of us are. We're both super. I would say super atheists.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was that made you finally take the plunge and use that title? Or did it just kinda happen gradually over time?
It just happened over time. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know exactly. I couldn't pinpoint like an exact year, like in 2010. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't pin. It's just like it's been going on for so long, and I've been so far removed from everything, and I've only seen the negative, nasty, gross parts of religion, anyways. So it's just reaffirming me every day. I feel like when I wake up
Right?
and read more terribleness in the news,
Yeah.
these people, the stuff I read nowadays, Jesus would be mad if you've read some of the stuff some of these people do and say and think that say they're Christians. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to read a horrible thing in the news and go, "I bet that was a Christian," and then be correct. And, there's people that are gonna come on
So
here and be
true.
like, "Not all Christians are like that," and they're right. I know a lot of wonderful
Mhm.
Christians, but they're wonderful despite the fact that they're a Christian, not because they are a Christian. I
Come and
know
get your people.
Right, right, I know lots of people who are really wonderful people and are also Christians, but knowing them as well as I know them, I truly believe they would be that good of a person whether or not religion was part of it. They're just good people,
Mhm.
and if they never went to another church again for the rest of their life, they would still be good people. And I also know a lot of people that are bad, whose entire brand was, I'm a like, how many serial killers were church-going men, were good Christian men. Not saying being a Christian made them a serial killer, but clearly it didn't make them not a serial killer either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying causation and correlation, but I am saying it didn't stop them. It didn't they weren't about to eat someone or kill someone and then go, "Oh, you know what? Actually, the Bible says I shouldn't do this, so I'm not gonna do this."
I don't know very many of them that were Buddhists.
Right, right. When's the last time you heard of a Buddhist mass shooter? Not me. Never heard of it. Um, how do you feel now that you've kind of you've I don't want to say adopted this lifestyle. You've claimed, I suppose, this lifestyle, atheism, you're no longer a Christian. Do you feel like it has impacted any relationships in your life negatively? Do you feel like people still like hang out with you and talk to you the same way? How has it changed your life the most?
It doesn't change my life a lot because I don't have a huge social network. I got off social media back in like 2016 when people started to get real terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's not like I have to like have it on my status page and like tell everybody, hey, everyone sees this. So it's not really something I'm out there about, and like it's not something I have a problem sharing with people I talk to, because being that I was religious for so long, I know how to like approach people respectfully about, or at least attempt to
Yeah.
approach people respectfully about their faith. And I know enough about most religions that I can BS with people and not hurt their
Yeah.
feelings
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
usually.
Yeah, I'm just utterly shocked you haven't made it your whole brand. You didn't decide to immediately make it your entire personality. Why not?
Oh, no, no. As much as I would like to become a ardent follower of the Satanic Church and what they are all about, like I think they are the coolest group of people. But
That no
I'm also not that big of a troll.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and that's good though. That's really good to hear, and I think what's important about hearing you say that, about hearing like, "Hey, it actually hasn't really negatively impacted my life at all," is because I think a lot of people listen to podcasts like this, and in their mind, they will lose everything. They will lose everyone. They will lose any connection, any relationship, be it familial, friendship. And while sadly many of them will, it happens all the time, many of them may not. Many of them may be kept in this, for lack of a better term, may be kept in this closet and not be who they are and not say what they feel when they feel like saying it or act in ways they feel like acting because they're afraid of losing everything, that community. And maybe they would be surprised to find out how many people around them either feel the same way and we're just waiting for someone to say it, like the first person to leave the dinner party. Everybody else is like, "Oh, now we
Yeah.
can all leave the dinner party,"
Finally.
Yeah, or like, I guess in my case, where they're like, "Well, that's a bummer. I'm disappointed to hear that. Are we still coming over for Thanksgiving?" Is this still a
Mhm.
thing? Um, so I'm happy for you. I'm glad to hear that there was no major loss there as you deconstructed. That's awesome.
No, there wasn't. I mean, I don't associate with people from, excuse me, I don't associate with people from the old church and anything like that really anyways. Once I stopped going, I was in my teens and 20s, so it wasn't like a super big problem. And I'm I'm fortunate that I haven't had to like really break my mom or dad's heart with it yet. Um, I know that's probably a big part of deconstructing for some people. I just don't see the value in doing it. But
Right.
my mom and dad are both super old, and they don't even go to church anymore. But they're so super religious. Like I don't see the value in like on their deathbed, like, oh, guess what? Everything you believe, I think is stupid.
Right,
Like
right,
I
right.
don't. I want to live authentic. I want to be authentic and live, uh, in my truth. And if they ask me, I would, yeah, I don't believe it. However, there's ways to say that without being a jerk,
Yeah.
and I've managed to do that so far
Yeah.
without completely
Yes.
trampling their feelings. However, I did give my dad a hard time about Trump the other day, and I feel a little guilty about it. But like,
Nah.
I don't I don't think Jesus would be okay with Donald Trump. I don't think Jesus would say, "This guy, this is my guy." Like, and I was trying to tell my dad that. I was like, "Dad, come on, dude. Like, really? Like that guy is like the most anti-Jesus that I could. Like, if I could think of someone who was like the opposite of Jesus, it probably would be Donald Trump." you
Right,
know?
and now he's trying to profit off of Bibles, and Jesus hated people who tried to profit off the church. He literally flipped tables, and now this man is trying to make Bible money so he can fund another campaign or some shit. I don't know what he's up to. I
Oh
don't know
my
what
God.
he's doing.
There's
But
so much. He's grifting, grifting, grifting. Yeah,
yeah,
no, but yeah, like I was trying. Like, I don't get it. That's not Christ-like. That's not love. That's not.
well, and you brought up something really important too. I think one of the other reasons that people don't become atheist or identify as atheist or deconstruct, even if it's not into atheism, is because kind of like you said in the beginning, back in the day when you were first deconstructing and when I was first deconstructing, there really wasn't a lot of content out there. And the content that was out there was the angry atheist content, the you're stupid if you're a Christian and I'm going to debate everyone and you can debate me all you want, but this is, and it was very scary. And I remember thinking, in order to be a non-religious or in order to be agnostic or an atheist, I had to be that way too. I had to be ready to be like, no, you're dumb. And anyone who believes the Bible is dumb. And I didn't feel that way. And so I think
Likewise, yeah.
what you're saying about how you don't have to bring it up, you don't have to make it your everyday dinner conversation. I think that would surprise a lot of people because they think, based on what they see on the internet, that in order to be an atheist, you have to like, I'm an atheist. Like I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to make everyone look at it. And I'm the same way as you. They asked me to pray at Thanksgiving a couple years ago and I did. I'm just like, what? Like, it's
Good for
whatever.
you. Good
Like,
job.
I'm just like, I'm not going to ruin Thanksgiving. Now I'm gonna make a podcast episode about it later, probably. You know, I'm gonna monetize it somehow, but, like, I'm not just because you are an atheist does not mean you have to be that guy in every
Hmm.
conversation who ruins it
Exactly.
for everybody and, you know, shits in their Wheaties, and they're like, "Well, they put it on you," and I'm like, "Yeah, and you don't like it, do you? When they do that? You don't like it when they do that, so why would you turn around and also be that guy for the opposite side? It doesn't make it any better." And people are always just surprised to hear that. They think if you've got a platform of any kind, you're an atheist all that. Nope. I don't tell people until they ask. Now, if they find my podcast, which a lot of times happens, they find my podcast and they figure it out that way. That's their business. But you
Those gas people.
yeah, yeah. Well, I have had a couple people be like, "Hey, I found your podcast. I spend a lot of time on that side of YouTube as well." And I'm like, "Ah, I see, an ally in my midst." Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Um, yeah, like, "Aha, we're at work, so I won't say what side of YouTube that is, but I see you." But I'm so glad you said that because I think there will be people listening to this who are relieved to find out that they're allowed to take that title, they're allowed to claim they're an atheist, and they don't have to defend it at the family dinner, at the mom's birthday or Easter or Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you can still do things like pray when you're asked to pray at the table, even if you don't think that doesn't make you a hypocrite. You're just keeping the peace, and you're allowed to do that
I
for however long you want.
No, yeah, I agree. I would much rather my dad, die in peace, thinking that I'm gonna, you know, go to the magical place with him than like anything else.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's no reason. Like I said, there's. However, some people, like, if your family, like, I get it. If you have a like combative family and stuff, like, that's different. Some
right,
people have different families than what I had,
right.
and some people are, have nasty combative, relatives they got to deal with and stuff like that. That's different.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's not
Oh,
me.
but I enjoy those moments a little too much, so I try to keep
Really.
those. Yeah, I do, a little bit. Just a
Yeah.
little bit. So I was in debate for a long time, I still do, I still
Oh,
debate
okay.
on
Word.
occasion.
All right.
Yeah, and so when people, like when I feel like I'm being summoned in that way, I'm like, "Ah."
The juices start flowing like the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get.
Like, "Aha, a worthy adversary."
Oh no.
But I recognize that that's not fun for most people. If you had advice for anybody, maybe they're listening to this and for the first time ever, they are coming to the realization that they don't have to be preachy about it. There's nothing they have to do to join the club. There's no kind of initiation process. Um, what advice would you give somebody who's beginning to deconstruct?
As much terrible stuff as there is in everything, there's good stuff in a lot of stuff too. And
Yeah,
like I was saying earlier, there is good in organized religion. It there is good in a lot of organized religions. There's good in a lot of different organized religions. You just have to find like what's good and separate the stuff you don't want. And then in America, we're great at doing that. We take what's awesome from other cultures of the world and we like, oh yeah, we like that. We'll take that.
yeah,
We like that. We'll take that. We like, we'll take that. We'll make it awesome. The same thing can be for religion. Like, you don't have to necessarily, follow the letter of the law of everything, but you can, like, there's good stuff to take away from Christianity. There's good stuff to take away from Islam. There's good stuff to take away from Buddhism. There's good. I mean, they all have like things that, like, yeah, that's good. That's what a good person should do. And that's the kind of stuff you should look for. The stuff that in the religion that is like loving, not the stuff that
yeah,
is the stuff that causes like anger. I personally, for me, I found the stuff that causes like rage, anger, and hatred is the stuff that, like, I, I try to like keep away from me. But the stuff that, like, I feel cultivates like love, respect, and dignity and goodness. Like, I try to, like, oh yeah, that's a good part of that faith. Maybe I'll do that.
yeah, yeah. Well, and like you said, America loves cherry picking the Bible. They love picking out the best parts of the Bible and only following
Mhm.
that part. So why stop doing that just because you become an atheist? Why not just keep cherry? The only difference is you at least admit that the rough stuff is there. That's
Yeah,
the big difference. Because somebody's going to listen to this and be like, what's the difference between doing that as an atheist and doing that as a Christian? As an atheist, you're saying, I know that horrible stuff is there and I know what it says and it's awful and I don't like it. I'm going to take this good stuff and use that as my basis. Whereas a lot of churches say, no, that bad stuff isn't there. You're just misinterpreting it. It's a you problem that you don't understand what the Bible's really trying to tell you. And that's wherein the problem lies, when you try to gaslight people into, no, when he said stone your daughter in the village in front of everyone for not being a virgin before marriage, what he actually meant was this other really deep, multifaceted thing that you simply can't understand because you haven't prayed enough. It's like, no, that's what he meant. He
Or
meant,
for you, it's probably because you're a woman.
yeah, literally though. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's like, well, see, God didn't build you to understand. That's why you need to find a man to read the Bible to you and show you what it means.
That
Yeah.
torques my wife more than anything else about religion is the whole like patriarchal aspect of it. It's like
Yeah.
the whole man has to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. People love to ask me if I want to be interviewed about like women in the Bible, women's treatment in the Bible. And I'm like, no, because I can summarize it in one sentence. It sucks. The end. There's no,
Not
with
for
the
us.
right. Even the story of Esther, that's supposed to be like this beautiful, powerful feminist story. Nope, she still got sold into marriage to somebody she didn't want to marry. Like, good thing he ended up liking her, I guess. But like, thanks for that feminist tale of
Oh,
heroism.
she was made great because of the dude. It's awesome.
Or if you are familiar with the VeggieTales version, she
Yeah,
was great because of the Chocolate Bunny Factory. She was a great Chocolate Bunny Factory queen. Um, well,
that's terrible.
man, every time I hear the
I'm
story of Esther, I think of that song, the
I'm
bunny
really
song.
sorry that I'm like making a joke about it because I know as a woman it's like
No, it's
that's not lit.
hilarious.
It was interesting to me to see you like flame up about that, and I could see, oh yeah, it's the exact same thing that gets my wife for.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, well, I'm so used to that because not only did I grow up religious, but I grew up religious in the South where you're just allowed to say stuff like that, and people are like, "Oh, facts." Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Uh-huh.
women aren't as smart. That's just how it is, and you're like,
Yeah. Did
like,
you go home and ask your husband? Yeah, you should.
yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, I could go off. But
That's that's terrible. The South getting better? I haven't been to the South in a long time. Is the South getting better?
So I will say there are cities, blue cities are really taking over. So I will say that. Like, I'm from Arkansas, and Arkansas is actually quite, depending on what part you live in, there are lots of liberal, progressive areas. The area I'm from is actually quite liberal and progressive
Oh,
now, and I'm
cool.
very proud of them. Yeah. And larger cities are definitely becoming more progressive. I live in Nashville now, and like
Okay.
you can see the blue, kind of creeping in.
Right on.
And
Right on.
whether or not that's Southern people changing their opinion, which I think it is, I think millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, I think we're really flipping the script. But also,
I think so.
I think people leaving blue states and coming to red states is also making a big difference. There's a huge influx, I feel like, of people from California moving to other states,
I'm about
right?
to be one soon.
Yep,
Probably.
yep, yep, and so I think that's also making a big difference. Like, I'm from the town where Walmart came from, so
Mhm.
people come in from all over the country, and they don't wanna see that shit. They don't wanna
Mhm.
see rebel flags. They're like, "I'm
Yeah.
from," "I'm from New York City. I don't wanna
I
look out my
know.
door and see a rebel flag. Gross, take that down."
I
I want
know.
bougie coffee. I'm from, Colorado. I wanna go hiking. Like, those are the
Mhm.
things we wanna do. We don't wanna see the KKK. Go away. Go somewhere else.
That's
Um
good to hear.
yeah, and so I would be curious to do some kind of study to find out what exactly it is. I think it's a combination of younger generations becoming older, being the people in charge of things that have never been in charge before, and the pandemic causing just mass exodus of people from blue states and expensive states coming to cheaper states. But yeah, there is hope. I'm not at the point anymore where I want to get the heck out of the South. It's just certain parts of the South. Like, for example, Texas. Nope, not gonna go there.
Mhm.
Done.
No, I know. Our we actually live in a really weird area. It's like 50-50. We go red or blue, depends on the year up here. We have a
Yep.
really weird streak of like old school conservatives that grew up in the area, that have lived in the area for generations. And then we have like the blue people that moved up from the Bay Area. And there's kind of like this like attitude towards the the people that have been here for a long time are kind of the more rural, and then the stupid Bay Area people move up here, and
Right.
it's even up here. Even where I live in this little small community, seems to be a division that we have to lay our sides of, like, pick what side we're on. I feel like all the time. So
Yes.
silly.
Yes. Well, and I tell people this, and this seems to bring them comfort. I say, whether you're right or whether I'm right, you're not going to see me in heaven either way. So relax, calm down. You're not going to see me after this is all over, regardless of who's right. Yeah, like, regardless. I didn't make it. So calm down. Your real estate's fine if you're right. Go up there, do your thing, have a party. I'm not going to be there. But that's really, I love hearing a story like yours, Rich. I talk to a lot of people who deconstruct, and it's just rough after that. And while it's not easy, and there's a lifetime of unpacking you're going to have to do, and there's a lifetime of cringing whenever you look back and you remember certain things, whether it was something you did or something you saw or something that you think as a parent, like, I can't believe people did these things and said these things in front of kids. I think it's also great that you've had a more positive experience in terms of the way people treat you, and not having lost everything, or having to give up your entire life in order to pursue what you feel is who you are. And for anybody listening, I hope you understand that that is an option. That's an option for you. You don't have to be the militant atheist. You don't have to be the one that everywhere you go, you have to flash it around. You got to be the first one to bring it up, and you're not a true atheist if you're not constantly debating. I feel like you, Rich, represent a kind of atheism that I hope becomes more common. Somebody who is allowed to make that decision for themselves and is allowed to express that side of themselves, and then just lives their best life as an atheist without having to fight about it all the time with people.
Yeah, it's cool. When you become an atheist, what's the mandate to go forth and convert is gone.
Yeah. Yeah,
I've got to do it a little more.
Yeah, exactly. But Rich, this has just been a really fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise. Same, sir.
Thank you so much for your time. And if you had any parting words for anybody listening to this, what would you say?
Just be kind to each other.
It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Yeah, absolutely.
Look for the love and avoid the hate.
Yep, absolutely. And for anybody listening, if you have any questions or comments for Rich, you can either leave them in the comments of the platform that you're watching on, or my email is in the description box on all platforms. You can email me, let me know what your questions are. I'd love to send him his way, or if you have any comments or anything at all that you'd like for him to answer, or you're curious about, send him my way, and I'll send him his way, and we'll do a lot of sending back and forth, and then I'll let you know what the answer is.
I'd love to hear from people. That sounds great. So, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. What you do is so super important. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.